how to make my homemade s'mores cookies with a marshmallow middle, chocolate spread, and the perfect chocolate chip cookie. Hello everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, where today we are starting off Halloween with a bit of a burst with my s'mores cookies. S'mores for a lot of people is more autumnal or, I don't know, bonfire night themed, but for me it really is Halloween as well, because it's the gooey, chocolatey campfireness of autumn, and I thought we'd have fun with it today, and I'd show you a delicious cookie recipe, which of course is just, you know, chocolate chip cookies that we all know and love, but with a homemade marshmallow filling with some chocolate spread as well. They're very over the top, very delicious, but they are so scrumptious. So I thought today we'd celebrate with that. Of course, I'm going to start with my cookie recipe, which is just a basic chocolate chip cookie, and you know, it's like every other cookie I produce, but it works, it's delicious. And then once they have cooled, I will show you how to make the marshmallow, which is the tricky bit, but the fun bit, and it's much easier to make than you think, and it tastes like heaven. So let's get baking. So when it comes to these cookies, it's 11 ingredients, and that sounds like a lot, but it's 11 easy to find, usually in your cupboard ingredients. And as it's my normal chocolate chip cookie, it always starts off with a butter or baking spread. I tend to find both work really well for cookies. If it's a baking spread, it can be cold. If it's a block butter, room temperature is easier, just to make everything mixed together. And then I always have my white granulated sugar and my light brown soft sugar to make the perfect flavored cookie. When it comes to my cookies like this, I always have the same 3 ingredients here, which is bicarbonate of soda, baking powder, and some sea salt. The sea salt is always optional in the cookies, but I love the flavor it brings, especially with the sweetness of the sugar. The baking powder is for the nice rise, and I always have bicarbonate of soda as well, because trust me, it gets the perfect cookie texture. Obviously, when it comes to my cookies and most of my bakes, I always add a bit of vanilla. Nielsen Macy is my favorite brand by far for vanilla because of how they make the vanilla, so I'll link this in the description box, but it's the perfect level of sweetness. And then of course, I also add in an egg. These are the only 2 liquids you ever need for my cookies, so as long as you mix it really well, you'll create the perfect cookie dough. If you find your cookie dough is a little bit too dry, you just need to beat it more. You do not need to add another egg. Obviously for the flour, I then have plain flour. I don't tend to use self-raising flour because I add the raising agents separately. So it's just basic plain flour. You can buy any supermarket owned brand, branded one, whatever you want, but plain flour will do. And then for the flavors of the chocolate chips, I have dark chocolate and I have milk chocolate. These are just a personal choice. You can use whatever flavor you want, but again, I just love the mixture of these 2 for the sweetness it gives and the slight bitterness from the dark chocolate as well. So I'm going to start my cookies by adding my butter to the bowl, and then I'm going to add my white granulated sugar, and then I'm going to add my light brown soft sugar as well. And then I'm going to beat these together until they're combined. Then I'm going to add my egg. A medium or large will work perfectly fine. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of vanilla extract, and then I'm going to mix again. Once those ingredients are added in, I then start adding my dry ingredients. So I have my bicarbonate of soda. I add all of these at the same time because it's easier, by the way. So I have my baking powder as well. I also have my sea salt. I find it better to use a sea salt that's in like little tiny chunks compared to a table salt, because if you use a table salt, it's going to be very strong. So if you do use table salt, just do like a little tiny pinch, or use salted butter. So I'm just going to add that in. And then finally, I'm going to add in my plain flour and mix until I have a delicious cookie dough, and then of course add the chocolate chips. And there you have your cookie dough. So once my cookie dough is made, I'm going to portion mine really easily by using this 5cm scoop. You want to make, ideally, an even amount of cookies because these sandwich together. So I make 16 cookies out of the batch, which in total at the end serves 8 s'mores cookies. Obviously, if you want to make them even smaller, you can, but the baking time will change ever so slightly. But for me, I just get the scoop, make sure it's evenly in the scoop, and then place it onto my lined baking tray and then bake in the oven. If you want to weigh them out, you can. The easiest way to ever work this out is just add up the weight of all of the ingredients and divide by how many you want. But obviously for me, I find it easier to just scoop and go, no faffing about weighing, nice and easy, and just straight onto the tray. So now all my cookies have been placed onto the trays. For this recipe, I don't chill the cookie because they're smaller, they spread to the perfect size we want. So I'm just gonna bake these in my preheated oven. For me, it's about 170 fan, 180 fan. You really need to keep an eye on your oven because every oven is different. So even if you think it's at 180, it might not be. Even if you have an oven thermometer and it says 180, yours might be on a different setting. So it's one of those things where you just sort of have to take it as it comes, but this sort of cookie usually is easy. So you just shove it in the oven, bake for about 11 to 12 minutes, and make sure you cool them completely before decorating, because these ones where we're sandwiching them together, you don't want them to be soft and gooey still. So you know, if you want a soft and gooey cookie, still one when they're fresh out of the oven, but leave the rest for the decorating. But either way, I'm gonna bake now and then leave them to cool fully. So now that my cookies have baked and cooled, you can see they're perfectly round, they're delicious, the chocolate chips are distributed perfectly. So I'm just gonna leave these to the side whilst I make my marshmallow. And this may look like a lot of contraptions, but trust me, it's easier than you think. So let me talk you through how to make the delicious meringue marshmallow middle. So when I'm starting to make this part of the recipe, as I've said, it can look a little bit daunting and scary, but all it is you have to make two things kind of at a similar time. So you've seen this before in my lemon meringue cheesecake video, which I posted a few weeks ago. But basically you have to make a very simple meringue at the same time as making your sugar syrup. And then when your sugar syrup is the correct temperature, you slowly pour it into your meringue and you whisk to this delicious Italian meringue, and it is absolutely glorious. But again, it looks a bit much, but don't worry, it's easier than you think. I tend to find this is easier if you start making the meringue first and you keep whisking the meringue. So this is easier if you have a stand mixer. If you don't, you're gonna have to make it at a slightly different time later on, keeping an eye on your sugar syrup. But either way, I start making my meringue, slowly add my caster sugar, keep it moving and whisking so it's the perfect meringue as this is heating up, and then you can slowly trickle it in and it will be delicious. But either way, caster sugar, egg whites, water and vanilla creates the perfect filling for these cookies, and you're gonna love it. Start by adding your egg whites to your bowl. Then you've got to whisk these to stiff peaks before you start adding your sugar. You can add a little vanilla. And that is how you make a gloriously smooth and delicious filling for these cookies. Just look at how glossy that is. So now that we have made our marshmallow, we're ready to decorate, but I thought I would just quickly recap how you make the marshmallow because it's a little complicated and I just thought it'd be easier to do step by step. But what I basically do is I start making my meringue just by whisking my egg whites to stiff peaks, add my caster sugar 1 teaspoon at a time, then I add my vanilla, and then I keep it whisking on a slow speed just to keep it fresh, make sure it doesn't deflate, whilst I make my sugar syrup, which is simply doing the water and caster sugar together. And then once the sugar's dissolved, you boil it to 113 degrees. I use my thermometer to make sure this is easier. And then you slowly trickle it in, whisk it until everything's combined, and then whisk for a further 5 minutes just to cool the meringue and sort of marshmallow down ever so slightly. And then we are here in our piping bags. So here is my marshmallow, and here is a chocolate spread. I use a chocolate spread for the chocolate part of like the s'mores because I want to be able to pipe it on. You can do a bit of chocolate if you want, but there's already chocolate chips in the cookies, which is how it sort of became a s'mores cookie. But either way, I'm gonna pipe my chocolate spread onto half, my marshmallow onto the other half, and then sandwich them together to create the perfect s'mores cookies. If you have leftover marshmallow, which you undoubtedly will, Side note, it's hard to make a smaller quantity because of the amount you're making. So I always make this amount, but then you can use this on something else. You can keep it for a couple of days in the fridge, but it might deflate ever so slightly, or you can eat it. But either way, it's absolutely delicious, and it's basically like making your own marshmallow fluff. So it's entirely up to you. You can try and keep it and use it in a different way if you want. But unfortunately, it will make a little bit too much for the amount of cookies, or you can double the amount of cookies and just use the same amount of marshmallow. It's entirely up to you. But either way, I'm just gonna pipe these on and then you'll have the perfect s'mores cookies. So that is how you make my s'mores cookies. They are delicious, over the top in such a good way, with a homemade marshmallow, chocolate spread, chocolate chip cookies. They are just insane. And I thought, you know, as I said at the beginning, this is the perfect way to start celebrating the spooky season and like autumn and everything like that. So make sure to check out the full recipe, which I'll put in the description box below, with a link to the blog post, which has all of the information you'll need. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box. And as always, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, because I love producing all these videos for you, and this really, really does help. And also, if you have any recipe requests, leave them in the comment box as well. But either way, I hope if you try this recipe out, you adore them as much as I do. But I'm about to go and devour this s'mores cookie, so enjoy.